Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Write With Me at 5 a.m. Pacific time, where we do two 25-minute sprints and a 5 to 10-minute break in between. I am, still working on Peter Crosby, doing my research for him regarding my historical novel series. And I am still in Colonel Miller's testimony, which is really long, seriously long. I scrolled through to the end of it this morning to see how much longer I have to go, and I'm on page 28 right now, and it's the next testimony doesn't start until page 50, and I've already have gone through I want to say over 10 pages so far of the testimony. So, yeah, his is long. But right now, I'm in the section where they're going over the surety bonds, the bonds that they said were incorrect about Peter Crosby, and which led to them supposedly forcing his resignation. So now I'm getting more details about that. I still want to seek out uh, more someone that has more knowledge about bonds so I can get a better understanding. But so far, for what I'm going through right now over Colonel Miller's, even though his other testimony stuff seems pretty sketchy, they just the rules or how bonds normally work, he's given pretty much clear information about the bonds, the surety bonds. So I think I'm getting, so far I'm getting a little bit more better understanding, I think, than I have had in the past. So that's it. I'm about to go ahead and start this timer. And again, two 25-minute sprints with a 5 to 10-minute break in between. And let's get started. Welcome. Drop in the chat what you're working on today. All right. Welcome. I see there's two people here. Uh, Drop in the chat where you're working on. This is Right With Me doing two 25-minute sprints and with a 5 to 10 minute break in between. Now I'm in the 5-minute break. It could go to 10 minutes, depending on if you guys have any questions. I am still working on my research for Peter Crosby. In my bio, or actually in the description, there is a bio I wrote about Peter Crosby. He was a sheriff that was elected in 1873. He was forced out of office in 1874 by a mob of 600 armed men, and so Governor Ames of Mississippi told him he should get his office back. There was no reason why should have been forced out of office. And when he went back to try to reclaim his office, and he also put out a notice to people, white and black Republicans, as Peter Crosby was a Republican, as most black people during that time were Republicans, like because of Abraham Lincoln and so forth. But anyway, when he did put out this notice, the people of the town, the white supremacists of the town, basically wanted to make sure that black people did not come into town. And even though there's a majority of black people in Vicksburg, but anyway, a massacre occurred. And so this is the story about the Vicksburg massacre. And I'm writing a historical fiction novel series based on that and the events that led up to it. Many black people were elected in the Reconstruction era. Hundreds of congressmen, 2 senators, and many other elected officials. There were 2 black governors that were in Louisiana. Just a lot of black elected officials that we just don't know about or weren't taught in school. I definitely wasn't taught this in school. But anyway, so that's what I'm working on. And currently, right now, I'm in Colonel Miller's testimony. And he is the person that the mayor O'Leary, mayor of Vicksburg, put in charge to keep black people out of town because they believed that they were going to cause a disturbance. But really, Peter just asked people to come to help him get his office back, just pretty much escort him in. But yeah, they thought it was going to be like this wild rampage. And so, like I said, hence the massacre happened. But Colonel Miller was in charge of people like the white folks, making sure that black people didn't come in. So I'm going through his testimony. His testimony is pretty long. Right now, I'm in the section about the bond, and that was the excuse that the Taxpayers League used to force Peter out of office. They said that his bond was incorrect. As a sheriff during this particular time period, not only were you doing the regular duties of sheriff, which is making sure that people obeyed the laws, but you were also a tax collector. And as a tax collector, you had to have these surety bonds. And so they kept saying that his bonds were incorrect, which is just a matter of redoing paperwork if that is true, if it is incorrect. And so I'm in Colonel Miller's testimony right now. He is going over one of the states that he was actually in charge of, that and he said that Peter had did that bond incorrectly. And so he's given all the details about why that bond was incorrect. But again, as I'm going through all of the things about the bond and getting a better understanding of it, again, why would 600 armed men force Peter Crosby out of office over some paperwork that could have just been redone, if that is the case, that if the bond was incorrect, or bonds, because I think there was more than just one. But yeah, but that's what the section that I'm in right now and going over all the different people, all the names that were on the board of supervisors. There were quite a few members of the board of supervisors that were Black too. So he lists all of those people off too. But if there's no questions, I see more people are popped in. Welcome, welcome. I'm starting the next 25-minute sprint right now, and just getting it done, moving forward. Mhm. Okay. Hey, Shanae. Good morning. Yes, you made it, and you are researching. How's your research coming along? I've been still going over Colonel Miller's testimony, and I'm in a section where they've been talking about the bonds more, and just that's been one of the things throughout my research of Peter Crosby, really understanding the bonds better. And so right now, I was just taking more of a deep dive, asking AI to explain what the bonds were like for a share of the surety bonds and during the 1800s, and what was at risk and why were they so important, and so forth, and why would people feel the need or such strong passion to oust someone out of office because of if bonds weren't correct, and besides just the race factor, right? So, and I feel like if there wasn't the race factor as being a part of it, they would have did more things to support or help Crosby if his bonds were incorrect. Though I remember reading at another point where Crosby had a judge go over his bonds, the paperwork, and the judge said everything was correct. But according to Colonel Miller, which again, as I said before, I feel like a lot of stuff in his testimony is suspect, even though he does give good um, uh, details on certain things like the bonds, for instance. Um, he was giving out numbers, figures of amounts of what the bonds should have been based on even one of his particular things. He's also an attorney and is in charge of the state for one person that had passed away. And he said that that bond amount was definitely incorrect because he is in charge of that particular estate, and that bond that it was not equivalent, financially equivalent to what was listed per Crosby. So so yeah, so just going through that and getting a lot of the details and trying to really wrap my head around all of the risk factors and why it was so important, um, and why everyone made such a big, not everyone, but why all the white people, the Taxpayers League, which ends up being a white supremacist group, why they um, use that as far as their being able to take them out. Shanae says, did any other non-Black sheriffs have bond issues during that time period? That's a great question. I have not researched to see what other sheriffs during that time period, how they, what issues they may or may not have had. But what's going through what Google pulled up for me regarding bonds, it does say that it was a pretty serious offense during that time if they did not have the proper bonds, because and the bonds are in place um, to prevent corruption, misuse of funds, and it's to protect the public funds. As a tax collector, you're collecting taxpayers, money, and so it's to ensure that the funds are not misused. So they have to have a certain amount of value, a certain amount to cover themselves. It's kind of like an insurance for the sheriff, um, in case things go sideways, and then actually an insurance for the town as well. So yeah, but yeah, I will. I as during my research, I will look into that, Shanae, and see how many, if any, had any issues, or were they just going after the Black sheriffs that had this, who, because this is part of their job to collect taxes, to be a tax collector. So I am going to wrap it up this morning. I still have so much to do. I've got to finally complete my lesson plan and turn that in for my teacher artist program. And because I meet with her on Friday, the teacher, to go over that. And then we only have 2 more classes left before I wrap up the program, even though I have a visit at a school, or I believe that's what it is. And they're coaching us at different schools, as part of the final steps for this teacher artist program. So that's interesting. And then I start work, and not next week, the week after. So looking forward to finally getting back to work. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And I'll be here again tomorrow. I'm here Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. Pacific time. So 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Pacific time. Take care. Happy writing. Right. Yep. Back to work.